How's it going, everyone? I wanted to jump on very quick and I wanted to post this video because I know that Nix is going to be having some discussions very soon um, concerning some topics that are very serious and that need to be brought to light because I know that a lot of us have experienced things that uh, we don't know how to communicate or we don't know what to do with. Um, and a lot of us are just, we hold them in and we don't talk about these things. And it gets unhealthy. It can affect our lives. And so I wanted to talk very quickly about triggers in case you've experienced any kind of a traumatic event. I want to talk about triggers, what's normal, a common experience when you get triggered, and things that you can do to help you work through them. Um, for those of you that have never really experienced any kind of traumatic event, um, a trigger is, and I'll tell you, I'm here at work right now, and I've got some materials up on my computer, so I'm going to go back and forth so that way they can kind of help me to talk to you about this in a cohesive manner. So a trigger is an event or object that reminds us of or subconsciously connects you to an aspect of your trauma, whether it's something that you experienced as a child or as a teenager or as an adult. It's just an event or object that reminds you of this experience. Triggers cause you to behave in the same way you did during or immediately after the traumatic event because your brain does not differentiate what happened then from what is going on around you now. And it's not necessarily, it's behaviors too. Like this said, it'll cause you to behave in certain ways, but it'll also cause and trigger emotions. So a lot of these things are going to be internal and not necessarily external. And so, let's see. Or trauma can trigger enough anxiety to disrupt your day from a momentary lapse in a panic attack. And so, triggers can lead to your body and your mind to feel overwhelmed and can trigger a panic attack. Triggers come in many forms. So experts categorize them as internal triggers like certain thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, bodily sensations. External triggers are like situations, people, location, people, places, and things. Maybe even a conversation that you may have, or observations that you see. And those observations don't necessarily have to be with our vision, but it just with our senses, things we see, smell, taste, feel. And so, um, let's see. Um, some of the things that can cause you to experience a trigger, and this is um, isn't specific to any kind of trauma. It's just because trauma comes in all kinds of different forms, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all these different things, right? And so triggers are a very personal thing. Two people can experience the same type of trauma or experience and still have completely different triggers. And so they're very personal. So triggers are very personal, and it is difficult to predict whether a person will experience them and what those triggers may be. Um, so in this case, for say survivors of domestic violence, some of the things that can trigger them are things like certain sounds, such as people yelling, or even people just raising their voices, whether it's male or female, regardless of the situation, that can trigger them. Things like glass breaking, door slamming, um, sites from locations where the trauma was experienced. So if it's a home at somewhere in your town, on a neighborhood, at a hotel, anything. It's locations, environments can cause triggers. The smell of an attacker's cologne or perfume. If you experience something traumatic and you remember a certain smell, so it's not necessarily cologne or perfumes. It could be if you were in a car accident, the smell of gasoline, rubber, that kind of stuff. That can trigger you. Specific colors, style of clothing. Um, Now this is kind of a big one. The taste of blood in your mouth can trigger people. Um, Being in close proximity to another person. Um, whether it's male or female, if certain builds, if you had experienced something with due to a perpetrator, um, everything from their eye shape, their nose, their mouth, their skin color, their height, all of that. If you come across somebody that matches the same as the perpetrator, that just that person's the way they look can trigger you. Um, let's see. Um, Depending on your trauma, being hugged, being touched, even being patted on the back, that can trigger you. And so whenever and there's a laundry list, there's all, depending on the trauma, there could be a whole other laundry list of other things that can trigger you. Some of the reactions to these things are sudden or unexplained bouts of crying. If something happens and you get triggered and you just start crying because you're releasing all this emotion, you don't know why, allow yourself to feel those things and let that cry happen. Don't try to stop it. If you see somebody else going through it, don't try to hand them tissue. Let them experience it and let them to just clear that out. When you're done, take a moment to sit there and think about it. Dissect what just happened. And if it was one of those triggers, try to figure out where that came from. Guaranteed, you'll be able to find it, and only you can do it. Some other things are sudden or unexplained fear, paranoia, anxiety or panic attacks, sudden physical symptoms such as nausea or fatigue, irritability, intrusive thoughts, being easily startled, hypervigilance. Hypervigilance has a lot to do with it's like your fight or flight kicks in, and your heart starts racing, your adrenaline starts pumping, and you're starting to look around at people and or your environment to make sure that you're going to be safe and you're prepared to fight or flight. And it could be a situation where you're completely safe, but it's the triggers and the memories and the emotions and everything involved that's causing you to feel like you're in danger. Let's see. Display of unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as those that you use during or after the traumatic event, like substance use, self-harm. An example here is going to bed just to get yourself to sleep so that way you're not having to worry about anything. In the type of work that I do, addicts will do that too. They'll self-medicate with substances. So when a trigger happens, don't be surprised if there's a memory replays in your mind, because these things are happening. You're experiencing something that's triggering you. And here's an example. This is a healthy trigger, but the smell of cinnamon rolls. My grandmother used to make cinnamon rolls, and they were my favorite, and I loved them. And when I smell cinnamon rolls, if I go to a bakery or grocery store, whatever, I smell them, I automatically start remembering my grandmother. And a lot of you know that my grandmother passed away 8 years ago in October. And so before, it would trigger me to become sad and depressed, but now those smells and those memories come up to me, and I feel happy, and I remember her, and I think about those times. And so triggers aren't necessarily always negative, but things start to replay, and unfortunately in this what we're talking about now, they can be negative. And so let's see, if you've experienced a lot of trauma in the past or any trauma period, and you know the topic of what they're going to be talking about, be prepared for the possibility that you will get triggered. And so it's important for you to realize that it's okay not to be okay. A lot of these discussions, a lot of these topics, they need to be brought to light because some of them have, society has decided that we need to keep these things quiet. We need to not talk about these things because it makes people uncomfortable. And so you are going to hear some uncomfortable things. Be prepared. Be prepared. And so I talked about senses, seeing things, smelling things, tasting things, feeling things, touching. And so the hearing part of this is hearing other people's stories about what they experienced, and it could be very something similar to what you've experienced. And so, one, you're not alone. Two, you just got to be prepared for all of these reactions that I talked about, because that's just a few, but there's some of the more extreme ones, and we got to be careful and be prepared for them. So very quickly, what do you do? What can you do if you start to get triggered? The biggest thing, the number one thing that I always talk to any of my clients or people that I'm talking to is to breathe. When we start to get triggered, our breathing is going to be shallow, and we might not even realize it. Concentrate on your breathing. In through the nose, in through the mouth. It doesn't matter. Inhale, feel your body, your chest expand. Hold it for a second and let it out slowly. 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, whatever it is. Because what's happening is your mind is telling your body to be prepared for fight or flight, because we're seeing and we're re-experiencing some things. Control yourself. You can control yourself, starting with the breathing. It may be a little uncomfortable at first because we're still wanting to breathe very fast, but control yourself, control your breathing. Slow, even breaths, breathing, and just focus on that. Let's see. This person says they withdraw into solitude to feel safe. Let's see. Reach out. So if you're getting triggered, get away from the situation. Turn it off. If you're having a hard time, allow yourself to recollect yourself. Call somebody. Call some supports. People that you trust. People that may have know what you're going through. You don't have to be specific. Get a hold of somebody that supports you. Let's see. Listen to your thoughts and listen to your feelings, whether they seem to make sense or not. A lot of times with the trauma that you've experienced causes your inner child to feel, let's see, like your inner child is what it has experienced everything, and so you kind of freak out because as a child we don't understand how to deal with these things, and if it's emotions and experience that we haven't processed, we fall back on that. And even though we're adults, we could be 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. If we were not able to process what happened, we'll feel like little children again, lost, alone, scared. And so be sure and have some supports available to you that are going to be there to help you to understand that you're okay, that you're safe. Let's see. Breathe deeply. Understand triggers can happen. You can feel them physically first before the emotions hit. So like I said, if you start to feel anxious, nervous, maybe you start to get scared, maybe you even get angry, watch for those, because those can be precursors to your triggers. One of the things that I teach a lot of my clients is to ground yourself. Realize that you're not there in that situation. You're in the here, you're in the now. Focus on, so the trigger can be because of your senses. So let's use our senses to pull ourselves out of that. Focus on sights, sounds, smells, textures. Be in the moment. One thing that I'll do is I'll talk about is your environment. Find something in your environment. Like there's that clock back there. What I tell people whenever I have them in my office is, focus on something. So for instance, the clock. Look at the clock. Start counting the numbers. 1 through 12. When you get to 10, don't count 10. 9, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, and then do it again if you have to. In your mind, look at the font. Look at what it looks like in the background. I don't know if you can tell, but there's like gears. Look at the gears. In your mind, take it apart. Let's talk about colors. Let's talk about, whatever it is that you can about whatever it is that you're looking at. Because if you don't have a clock, you can look at something else. You can look at a painting. You can look at anything. And what you're doing is you're dissecting it in your mind and you're focusing on each little aspect of whatever it is you're looking at, like the clock. what you're doing is you're pulling yourself out of those memories into the here and to the now. You know, listen to your breathing, you know, as you're inhaling. Focus on that if you have to. And remember, you're not there. You're not experiencing that traumatic event. You were triggered, and realize that that's okay and that's normal. Take a deep breath. Here and now. We've got to focus on the here and now. Another thing is that if you have candy, something to eat, something you can put in your mouth, some food. We talk about mints. It's something simple I can bring to my clients and have them practice this. Take a mint, put it in your mouth. What does it taste like? What do you feel on the candy as it's dissolving? You know, sometimes those mints cause little pits and stuff, and you know, you can feel how it goes from being super slick and sticky to like you know, those sharp edges in the candy, and you know, what are you smelling as you exhale? Focus on those things. Find something that you can focus on. Gosh, you can do it with anything. You know, if you have a soda, take a drink. What are you feeling? The bubbles in your mouth. You know, what does it taste like? Use your senses to do these things. Let's see. Well, another thing to do is go outside and focus on whatever environment you have. Look up into the sky. Look at a tree. Look at the grass. Try to count a 1 by 1, 1 foot by 1 foot piece of grass. How many blades of grass can you count? You know, it's not about being correct. It's about pulling yourself to the here and now. So think about that. Let me see. Do something that will make you feel more safe, calm, or confident. You know, if you have a favorite blanket, if you have a favorite movie, turn on the movie, sit on your couch, wrap yourself up in that blanket, and focus on that. You know, pull yourself away from whatever it was that was triggering you. Another thing that this talks about is talking it out. When I'm here doing therapies, there's times when I won't say a word, and I'll let the people talk. I'll let the individual talk about what's going on. And sometimes listening to ourselves talk out loud, we can figure out how to work through things just by our own experiences and what we've the knowledge that we have about or that we've picked up from other people. You know, and sometimes the people will be talking, and I'll say, well, there you go. That's what we can do. So let's see. The last thing that this has is positive sensory experiences. If you have animals, pick up your cat, pick up your dog. You know, pet the animal, pet your whatever it is. If you have a rat, whatever, you know, something that's going to calm you. One thing that I do personally that I've done in the past is to do I do a list, gratitude list. I'm thankful for my children. I'm thankful for my children's health. I'm thankful for having a job. I'm thankful for having a roof over my head. I'm thankful for having a vehicle. Whatever it is that works for you. And as you go through those, don't go through them as fast as I did. Just take your time. I'm thankful for my children. Why? Well, because they bring great joy to my life. You know, we have good relationships. They're healthy. They're fantastic. I love to see them smile and laugh. And as you're going through those things, bring up some memories so that way you're re-experiencing those and not the traumatic event. And so, and if you've experienced some things, I would really suggest that seek some professional help if you need it. You know, find somebody that would be able to listen to you and help you work through your trauma. I can talk some more about that. You know, find somebody that works for you. It doesn't have to be the first person you find, but yeah, if you're feeling triggered, you know, be very careful with yourself. If you've experienced trauma in the past, be very careful. And you know, trauma is tough to work through. It's very tough. It can be hard. It can be scary. It can cause you to become very angry. But you know, there's help out there for you. And I'm glad that Nyx is doing what she's doing, because a lot of these things need to be brought to light, because it's time to talk about these things and to work through them and to allow the healing to begin. If you have any questions, hit me up. You know, take care. Love you guys.